My name is Zoey. I'm 28 years old, and I'll never forget the look on my sister Madison's face when she laughed at me for asking to withdraw $150 from my account. The entire bank was watching as she humiliated me, calling me pathetic in front of everyone. But when I quietly asked the teller to check my full balance and prepare to close my account, the color drained from Madison's face. The teller's hands started shaking as she whispered the number $3.8 billion. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's dealt with toxic family members who underestimated you? Have you ever had a moment where you finally got to prove everyone wrong? Please hit that like button if you believe in karma, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about triumph over family betrayal. What happened next in that bank will leave you absolutely speechless, so let's get into how I went from being mocked for needing grocery money to watching an entire financial institution crumble at my feet. Growing up as Madison's younger sister meant living in a shadow so dark I sometimes forgot what sunlight felt like. She was 31 now, 3 years older than me, and those 3 years might as well have been 3 decades for how much our parents favored her. Madison was the golden child who could do no wrong, the one who got straight A's without studying, who made varsity cheerleading and student council president, who landed a job at the bank straight out of college and climbed the ladder to senior vice president before she turned 30. I was just Zoey, the disappointment, the one who preferred books to parties, who studied coding instead of fashion, who our mother Cheryl constantly compared unfavorably to her older daughter. Everything changed when our father passed away 5 years ago. I was only 23, fresh out of college with a computer science degree that my family mocked as playing with computers. Dad was different, though. While Mom fawned over Madison's banking career, Dad would spend hours with me in his study showing me his work. He was a tech genius, a quiet man who built revolutionary encryption software that most people, including my mother and sister, dismissed as boring computer stuff. The night before he died from a sudden heart attack, he pulled me aside and told me something I'll never forget. "Zoey, your sister values what shines on the surface. You understand what matters underneath. Remember that when the time comes." The will reading was a theatrical performance orchestrated by Madison. She'd already poisoned our mother against me, whispering that I was unstable, that I'd waste any inheritance on silly tech ventures. When the lawyer read the will, Madison got everything that glittered: the house in Westchester, the Mercedes, the Rolex collection, the vacation home in the Hamptons, and most of the visible bank accounts. The room erupted in Madison's fake tears of gratitude, while our mother patted her back, murmuring about how father knew best who could handle real assets. Then came my portion, a struggling tech startup called Cipher Core, and what the lawyer described as various intellectual property and computer codes. Madison actually laughed out loud. "Dad knew you'd just waste real money, Zoey. At least with a failing company and some useless code, you can play pretend entrepreneur until you grow up and get a real job like mine." Our mother nodded approvingly, adding, "Your father was protecting you from yourself, dear. Madison can help you figure out what to do with that company." For 2 years, I endured their mockery at every family gathering. Madison would introduce me to her banker friends as my sister who inherited Dad's junk drawer, while our mother would sigh dramatically about how one daughter got the business sense while the other got the participation trophy. They had no idea that I spent those years working 18-hour days understanding what my father had really left me. CipherCore wasn't just a struggling startup. It was sitting on patents for encryption technology that would become essential for every major corporation worried about data security. Those useless computer codes, they were the foundation of a revolutionary system for secure financial transactions. While Madison flaunted her salary and bonuses, I lived in a studio apartment, drove the same Honda Civic from college, and worked part-time at a local bookstore to pay bills while secretly meeting with patent lawyers and tech companies. I wore the same 3 outfits on rotation while Madison posted Instagram photos from Michelin-starred restaurants and designer clothes. But I kept quiet even as the deals started coming together. Microsoft wanted the encryption protocol for their cloud services. Apple needed it for their payment systems. The Department of Defense was interested in a classified application. One by one, the contracts lined up, each worth hundreds of millions, some worth more than $1 billion. Madison's cruelty escalated as she interpreted my silence as defeat. She started showing up at the bookstore where I worked loudly browsing the self-help section and making comments about people who can't make it in the real world. She'd invite me to expensive restaurants just to watch me squirm at the prices, then make a show of paying while announcing to the waiter that she was treating her less fortunate sister. She spread rumors in our extended family that I'd been fired from multiple jobs, that I was living off credit cards, that I'd begged her for loans she'd righteously refused. But the cruelest blow came 8 months ago. Nathan and I had been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months. He was a sweet guy, a teacher who didn't care that I wore thrift store clothes or couldn't afford fancy dates. Madison met him at our engagement party, a small gathering at my apartment where she showed up in a dress that cost more than my monthly rent. She spent the evening regaling Nathan with stories of her banking success, touching his arm, laughing at his jokes while shooting me victorious glances. 2 weeks later, Nathan came to me in tears. Madison had shown up at his school, taken him to lunch, and seduced him. They'd slept together, and she'd immediately sent him photos of the encounter with a message. "Thanks for the fun afternoon. You can keep the ring you gave my sister. Consider it payment." Nathan begged for forgiveness, but Madison had already posted about their date on social media, tagging me to ensure I'd see it. When I confronted her, she laughed and said, "I didn't want him, Zoey. I just wanted to prove that even your bargain basement fiancé knew you were settling. I did you a favor. Now you can stop pretending someone would choose you when I'm available." She dumped Nathan the next week, telling him she'd been slumming it and that teachers were beneath her tax bracket. He tried to come back to me, but the damage was done. Madison had taken the one person who'd loved me for me and turned him into another weapon against me. Our mother, when told about the situation, sided with Madison as always. "Men can't help themselves around confident, successful women," she'd said. "Perhaps if you'd made more of an effort with your appearance and career, Nathan wouldn't have been tempted. Madison was just showing you the truth." That night, I made a decision. The patents were almost ready, the deals nearly finalized. Soon, I'd have enough money to disappear from their lives forever. I just needed to wait for the right moment when the funds would clear and I could close every account, every connection to the family that had spent 28 years telling me I was worthless. That moment came this morning when my car broke down. The mechanic said it would be $150 for the repair, and my checking account at Madison's bank had $143 until my bookstore paycheck cleared tomorrow. I could have transferred money from one of my new accounts at other banks, but something made me want to walk into Madison's territory one last time. I didn't know it then, but asking for that $7 difference would trigger the complete destruction of everything Madison had built and reveal exactly who had been the fool all along. The morning air was crisp as I pushed through the heavy glass doors of First National Bank of Westchester, where Madison reigned as senior vice president. The marble floors reflected the chandelier lights, and the familiar scent of leather and money filled my nostrils. I'd been here countless times before, usually to deposit my meager bookstore paychecks while Madison's colleagues whispered and pointed. Today felt different, though. Today was supposed to be simple: withdraw $150, fix my car, go home. I should have known better than to expect simple when Madison was involved. I approached the teller line, clutching my withdrawal slip when I heard her voice cutting through the professional hum of the bank. "Is that my sister? Oh my God! Brittany, come! Look, Zoey's here!" Madison emerged from her corner office like a predator scenting blood, her Louboutin heels clicking against marble as she approached. She was dressed in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. her perfectly manicured nails catching the light as she waved over Brittany Chin, the bank manager, and her sorority sister from college. "Zoey, what a surprise," Madison said, her voice dripping with false sweetness that didn't reach her cold blue eyes. "Let me guess, overdrawn again, need to beg for a fee waiver." She turned to Brittany with a conspiratorial smile. "She's here at least once a month with some sob story. Last time it was her electric bill, before that groceries. It's really quite sad." I tried to step around her toward the teller window, but Madison blocked my path, her smile widening. "Oh no, any transaction at this bank goes through me when it involves family. Bank policy." That was a lie, of course, but Brittany nodded supportively, and the security guard Harold shifted closer, as if I might be a threat. "Besides," Madison continued, raising her voice so everyone in the bank could hear, "I think it's time we had a talk about your account history. Brittany, pull up her records." Brittany's fingers flew across her tablet and her face lit up with malicious glee. "Oh, wow! Madison, you weren't kidding! Average balance of under $200 for the past year. Multiple overdrafts. Declined debit card transactions at... Oh, this is embarrassing. The dollar store." She showed the screen to Madison, who tisked dramatically. The other customers in line were openly staring now, some recording with their phones, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "Still making minimum wage at that dusty bookstore, I see," Madison said, scrolling through my transaction history. $7.25 an hour. That's what before taxes. No wonder you can't afford anything. You know the janitors here make more than that." She paused, pretending to think. "Actually, we're hiring janitors. I could put in a word if you'd like. It would be a step up from your current situation." I kept my voice steady despite the humiliation burning through me. "I just need to withdraw $150 for my car repair. That's all." Madison's laugh was sharp and cruel. $150, God, Zoey, that's what I tip for lunch. But looking at your balance, $143.16. You're asking for money you don't have. Again. "My paycheck deposits tomorrow," I said quietly, aware of every eye in the bank on us. "I can cover the overdraft fee." Madison shook her head slowly, savoring the moment. "See, that's your problem, Zoey. Always living paycheck to paycheck, always one emergency away from disaster. Do you know what I had for breakfast this morning? Eggs Benedict at the country club. $60. That's almost your entire daily wage, and I didn't even think twice about it." She turned to address the growing audience like she was giving a TED Talk. This is what happens when people refuse to apply themselves. My sister here had the same opportunities I did, the same parents, the same education. But while I worked hard to build a career, she chose to play with computers and work retail. Now look where we are. A few people nodded sympathetically at Madison, buying into her narrative completely. "Speaking of choices," Madison continued, her eyes glinting with cruelty, "I ran into Nathan last week. Remember Nathan, everyone, Zoey's ex-fiancé?" She stage whispered to Brittany loud enough for everyone to hear. "Left her for a real woman with actual ambitions. Can you blame him? Imagine proposing to someone who can't even maintain a 3-digit bank balance." The pain of that betrayal hit fresh, but I forced myself to remain calm. Madison wasn't done. "He asked about you, actually. Said he dodged a bullet. Apparently, you were always borrowing money from him, too. $20 here, $50 there. He said dating you was like adopting a charity case." That was a complete lie. I'd never borrowed money from Nathan, but I could see the crowd eating it up, shooting me pitying looks mixed with disgust. "You know what?" Madison reached into her designer wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. "I'm feeling generous today. Here's some charity for my poor little sister." She threw the bill at my feet, where it landed on the polished marble. "Buy yourself something nice. Maybe shampoo that actually works, or clothes that don't come from the clearance rack. Dad would be so ashamed to see what you've become." Something inside me snapped at the mention of our father. The same man who'd seen my potential when no one else did, who'd left me his life's work disguised as worthless code. I looked at the $20 bill on the floor, then at Madison's smug face, then at the crowd of people recording what they thought was just another family drama. They had no idea they were about to witness the complete dismantling of Madison's carefully constructed kingdom. I bent down slowly, picked up the $20 bill, and folded it carefully. Then I looked Madison straight in the eye and said the words that would change everything. "You're right, Madison. I'm done playing games. I'd like to close all my accounts at this bank, every single one of them." Madison laughed that sharp bark that I'd heard 1,000 times. "All your accounts. You mean your one pathetic checking account with $143. Oh no, how will we ever survive losing such a valuable customer?" I turned to the nearest teller, a young woman named Jennifer, whose eyes held a hint of sympathy. "Could you please pull up my complete portfolio, all accounts associated with my Social Security number, including the ones opened in the last 6 months?" Jennifer looked confused, but began typing. Madison waved her hand dismissively. "This is ridiculous. Jennifer, she has one account. I can see it right here on my screen." But Jennifer's fingers had stopped moving, her face growing pale as she stared at her monitor. She typed something else, waited, then typed again. Her hands began to tremble slightly. "Ma'am," she said to me, her voice barely above a whisper, "could you please verify your Social Security number again?" I recited it calmly, watching as she input it once more. The color drained from her face completely. "Brittany," Jennifer called, her voice shaking, "you need to see this. There might be a system error." Brittany strutted over, still smirking, but her expression changed as she looked at the screen. She grabbed the keyboard from Jennifer, typing frantically, pulling up screen after screen. The smirk disappeared entirely, replaced by something that looked like terror. Madison, annoyed at being ignored, stormed over to look at the screen. I watched her face transform in real-time confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally pure rage. Her perfectly composed mask shattered as she read the numbers displayed across multiple accounts. "This is fraud," she snarled, whirling on me. "This is some kind of scam Zoey's trying to steal from the bank. Call security, call the police." But I was already pulling out my phone, opening the folder I'd labeled Freedom. One by one, I showed Jennifer the documentation wire transfer confirmations from major tech corporations, patent sale agreements with government seals, licensing contracts with signatures from CEOs everyone in that bank would recognize. Raymond Morrison. My lawyer had prepared everything meticulously, knowing this day would come. As Jennifer reviewed each document, her hands shook harder. Brittany had gone completely white, clutching the edge of the counter for support. And Madison. Madison looked like her entire world was crumbling, because it was. "The balance," Jennifer finally managed to say, her voice carrying across the now silent bank. "The total balance across all accounts is $3.8 billion. The silence that followed Jennifer's announcement was so complete, you could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. $3.8 billion. The number hung in the air like a physical presence, transforming the atmosphere of the bank from one of mockery to absolute shock. Madison's face cycled through emotions like a broken slot machine. Disbelief, rage, confusion, and back to rage. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the red blotches appearing on her neck, a telltale sign of her panic that I remembered from childhood. "This is impossible!" Madison hissed, pushing Jennifer aside to access the computer herself. Her manicured nails clicked frantically across the keyboard as she pulled up account after account, each one showing balances that made her hands shake more violently. "These have to be fake, phantom accounts. Someone's hacking our system." She spun toward Harold, the security guard, who'd been smirking at me minutes ago. "Lock the doors. No one leaves until we sort this out. This woman is attempting the largest bank fraud in history." But I was already prepared for this reaction. From my worn messenger bag, I pulled out a leather portfolio that Raymond had given me yesterday. "Jennifer," I said calmly, ignoring my sister's increasingly hysterical demands, "I'd like you to verify these documents, please. As you'll see, I sent formal notice to the bank 30 days ago regarding my intention to withdraw and close all accounts. Here's the certified mail receipt showing delivery to your legal department." Jennifer accepted the documents with trembling fingers, scanning through them while Brittany read over her shoulder. The first was the patent sale to Microsoft, a deal that had taken 18 months to negotiate. $1.2 billion for the encryption protocol that would protect their cloud services for the next decade. The Microsoft letterhead was unmistakable, the signatures from their CEO and legal team bold and clear. Next came the Apple agreement, $800 million for integration into their payment systems. Then the Department of Defense contract partially redacted for security reasons, but showing a clear payment of $1.5 billion. "These are forged," Madison insisted, but her voice had lost its commanding tone. She sounded desperate now, almost pleading. "Zoey works at a bookstore. She makes minimum wage. I've seen her buy generic cereal because she couldn't afford name brand. This is all an elaborate con." She grabbed her phone, presumably to call the police, but Brittany stopped her with a shaking hand. "Madison," Brittany whispered, "these are real. The watermarks, the routing numbers, the federal verification codes. I've been in banking for 15 years. These are real." She looked up at me with a mixture of fear and awe. "Ms. Chen, you really have $3.8 billion in our bank." The other customers in the bank had formed a semicircle around us, phones out recording every second. I could already see someone typing furiously, probably posting to social media. Within minutes, this would be everywhere. Madison seemed to realize this too because she suddenly changed tactics, forcing a sick smile onto her face. "Zoey, my dear sister," she said, her voice artificially sweet. "There's obviously been a misunderstanding. Of course I'm happy for your success. This is wonderful news. Why didn't you tell us Mom will be so proud?" She reached out as if to hug me, but I stepped back, maintaining eye contact. The rejection made her mask slip again, revealing the fury underneath. "Where did you get this money?" she demanded, abandoning pretense. "Did you sell yourself to some old tech billionaire, blackmail someone, steal corporate secrets? Because there's no way my pathetic little sister earned this legitimately." She turned to the growing crowd. "She must have done something illegal. Investigation. We need a full investigation." I pulled out more documents, laying them on the counter one by one. Patent number 9,834,521 Quantum Encryption Protocol for Financial Systems. Invented by David Chen, transferred to me upon his death. Licensed to Microsoft. Another document. Patent number 9,834,522 Biometric Security Integration for Mobile Payments. Also invented by our father, also transferred to me. Sold to Apple. More papers. Patent numbers 9,834,523 through 9,834,547. Various encryption and security protocols. All invented by Dad, all left to me. All now generating hundreds of millions in revenue annually. Madison's face went from red to white as the implications hit her. "Dad's computer codes," she whispered. "The worthless startup, the junk in his will." Her voice rose to a shriek. "Those were supposed to be nothing. Mom said they were nothing. The lawyer said they were worthless." She whirled on me, her composure completely shattered. "You knew. You sat there at every family dinner wearing your pathetic thrift store clothes, letting us mock you, and you knew you had billions." "I didn't have billions then," I said quietly. "I had potential. I had Dad's life work. I had to spend years understanding what he'd built, finding the right buyers, negotiating contracts, proving the technology worked. While you were laughing at me for working at a bookstore, I was in meetings with tech giants. While you were posting Instagram photos of your fancy dinners, I was reviewing patent law until 3 in the morning. While you were seducing my fiancé to prove a point, I was signing deals that would change the cybersecurity industry forever. The bank had erupted into chaos. Brittany was on the phone with corporate, her voice high and panicked. Other employees were running between offices, pulling files, making calls. The regional manager, Dale Morrison, was apparently already in his car racing to our location. Someone in the crowd shouted that the bank's stock price was starting to fluctuate as news spread on social media. #BillionDollar Sister was already trending. Madison made one last desperate play. "You can't withdraw all of it," she said, grasping at straws. "Banks don't keep that much liquid capital. You'll crash the entire system. You'll hurt innocent people, their retirement accounts, their savings." She was trying to guilt me, but I'd anticipated this too. "According to federal regulations," I said, pulling out another document, "banks have 30 days to prepare for large withdrawals if given proper notice. As you can see from this certified mail receipt, I notified First National Bank of Westchester exactly 30 days ago of my intention to withdraw all funds. Your legal department signed for it. They've had a month to prepare." I turned to Jennifer, who looked like she might faint. "I'm not asking for cash, obviously. A wire transfer to my attorney's escrow account will be fine." The bank's phone system lit up like a Christmas tree. Every line was ringing simultaneously. Through the glass doors, I could see news vans starting to arrive. Someone had leaked the story, and the media smelled blood in the water. Madison saw them too and made a final crucial mistake. "Fine," she snarled, all pretense of professionalism gone. "Take your money and get out. But you're done in this town. I'll make sure everyone knows what a conniving, manipulative bitch you are. I'll tell them how you hid money from your family, how you let your own mother think you were a failure. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly that no amount of money will fix it. And when you're alone in some mansion surrounded by everything you can buy, but no one who actually loves you, remember that you chose this. You chose money over family." I looked at my sister, really looked at her for perhaps the first time in years. Beneath the designer suit and perfect makeup, I saw the truth. She was terrified. Her entire identity was built on being the successful one, the one who had it all together while I struggled. Now that narrative was shattered and she had nothing left but threats and rage. "Madison," I said softly, "I didn't choose money over family. I chose self-respect over abuse. There's a difference." I turned back to Jennifer. "Now about that wire transfer." But before Jennifer could respond, the bank's front doors burst open. My mother had arrived, and with her came a whole new level of drama that would expose just how deep the betrayal in my family really ran. The automatic doors hadn't even finished sliding open before Cheryl Chin's voice filled the bank like a fire alarm. "Where is she? Where is my daughter?" But the maternal concern in her tone was as fake as her highlighted hair and Botox-smoothed forehead. She swept into the bank wearing her favorite St. John suit, the pink one she saved for occasions where she needed to appear both wealthy and sympathetic. Behind her trailed Dr. Peterson, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who I'd never seen before in my life. "Zoey." My mother rushed toward me with arms outstretched, but her eyes were calculating, not caring. "Sweetheart, what's happening? Madison called me in hysterics, saying you were having some kind of episode." She turned to the crowd with a perfectly practiced expression of concern. "My younger daughter has always been fragile. The stress of poverty, you understand. It can make people do desperate things." Madison quickly recovered her composure, sensing an ally. "Mom, Zoey's trying to claim she has billions of dollars. She's obviously delusional. Remember what we discussed about her mental state. They exchanged a look that told me this was planned, rehearsed even. How many times had they discussed what to do if I ever came into money? "Oh, Zoey!" My mother sighed dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest. "Is this another one of your fantasies, like when you thought you'd be a successful programmer, or when you believed Nathan actually loved you for yourself?" The cruelty was delivered with such sweet concern that several onlookers made sympathetic noises toward her. Not me. Dr. Peterson stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. "Mrs. Chen, I'm afraid your concerns about Zoe's mental state appear to be justified. This grandiose delusion about billions of dollars, the paranoid beliefs about family persecution, these are classic symptoms of the disorder we discussed." He pulled out a official-looking folder. "I have here the documentation of her treatment history." "I've never seen this man before in my life," I said, clearly making sure my voice carried to the phones, still recording. "I don't know who he is or why he's lying, but I've never been his patient." But my mother was already shaking her head sadly, pulling out her own set of papers. "Denial is part of the condition. Dr. Peterson explained that to me," she said, addressing the bank manager. "As Zoe's mother and legal guardian due to her mental incompetence, I'll need to take control of any assets she might have accidentally acquired. It's for her own good, you understand. Last time she had more than $1,000, she gave it all to an internet scammer claiming to be a Nigerian prince. That was a complete fabrication, but she delivered it with such conviction that I saw doubt creep into some faces. This was their plan: paint me as mentally ill, seize control of my money, and split it between them. But they'd made one crucial error. They didn't know about Raymond or the FBI investigation. "Cheryl, stop," I said, pulling out my phone. "I've been recording this entire interaction. Every lie, every false claim about my mental health, every attempt to defraud me of my legal assets." I held up the phone so everyone could see the recording app running. "And this isn't the only recording I have." My mother's face went pale beneath her makeup, but she rallied. "Recording your mother, your sister. This paranoia is exactly what Dr. Peterson warned me about. Brittany, as a bank manager, surely you can see that someone this unstable shouldn't have access to large sums of money. What if she uses it to hurt herself or others?" "The only people trying to hurt anyone are you and Madison," I replied, scrolling through my phone. "Would you like me to play the recording from last Christmas? The one where you and Madison discussed how to have me committed if I ever inherited anything valuable from Dad's estate. Or maybe the one from Easter, where Madison bragged about seducing Nathan specifically to break me psychologically." The bank had become absolutely silent except for the sound of phones recording and cameras clicking. Dr. Peterson began backing toward the door, but Harold, the security guard who seemed to have switched sides, blocked his path. Madison grabbed our mother's arm, whispering urgently, but Cheryl shook her off. "You ungrateful child!" my mother hissed, dropping all pretense of concern. "After everything I've done for you, I protected you from your father's ridiculous expectations. He wanted to leave you everything. Did you know that? The houses, the money, the company, all of it. He said Madison was too materialistic, too cruel to handle real wealth responsibly. I had to work for months to convince him to change his will." The admission hung in the air like a bomb explosion. Madison turned to our mother in shock. "What? You told me Dad always planned to leave me everything. You said Zoey was an afterthought." But Cheryl was beyond caring about maintaining their alliance. "Of course I told you that. You were easier to control when you thought you were the favorite. Just like Zoey was easier to manage when she thought she was worthless. A mother does what she has to do to maintain family harmony." She turned back to me, her face twisted with years of resentment. "But you couldn't just accept your place, could you? You had to go digging into those stupid computer programs, had to prove you were special, just like your father always said." Right on cue, the bank doors opened again. This time it was Raymond Morrison, my lawyer, accompanied by someone whose FBI badge gleamed gold in the afternoon light. Derek Sullivan was exactly what you'd expect from a federal agent, tall, serious, with eyes that missed nothing. He surveyed the chaotic scene with professional interest before focusing on my mother and sister. Cheryl Chin, Madison Chin, Agent Sullivan said, his voice carrying absolute authority. I'm placing you both under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and violation of federal banking regulations. He nodded to Dr. Peterson. You too, doctor, though I suspect we'll find your medical license is as fake as your diagnosis of Ms. Zoey Chin. Madison tried to run her designer heels skidding on the marble floor. She made it about 3 steps before 2 more agents appeared from outside, blocking her path. "This is impossible!" she screamed. "I'm a senior vice president. I have connections. You can't arrest me based on her lies." Agent Sullivan pulled out a tablet, swiping through files. "Ms. Madison Chin, you've accessed your sister's bank account without authorization 847 times in the past 2 years. Each instance is a federal crime. You've also been siphoning money from dormant accounts using your position to manipulate financial records and accepting bribes from customers in exchange for loan approvals." He looked up with a slight smile. "Your sister isn't the one who reported you. Your own colleague Jennifer here came to us 6 months ago with evidence. We've been building this case independently." Jennifer stepped forward, looking both terrified and relieved. "I couldn't stand it anymore," she said quietly. "Watching Madison destroy people's lives, steal from their accounts, mock them for being poor while she robbed them blind. When I found out she was doing it to her own sister, I knew I had to act." My mother laughed bitterly. "6 months ago? But that's before Zoey even had—" Her eyes widened as the implication hit. You knew she'd have money eventually, and you were setting us up." She turned to me with pure hatred. "You've been planning this, letting us incriminate ourselves while you sat there playing the victim." "I didn't plan anything," I said honestly. "I just lived my life, worked on Dad's legacy, and let you show your true colors. The FBI investigation into Madison was already happening. The fact that it intersected with today, that's just karma." I pulled out one more document from my bag. "But I do have something else you should know about. Dad didn't just leave me the patents, Mom. He left me a video will. Would you like to see what he really thought about his family?" The blood drained from both their faces. Raymond connected his phone to the bank's display screen, and suddenly my father's face appeared larger than life. He looked tired but determined, the timestamp showing it was recorded just a week before his death. "If you're watching this," my father said, his voice filling the silent bank, "then I'm gone and the truth needs to be told. First, to my daughter Zoey. Everything I've built, everything I've created belongs to you. Not because you're my favorite, but because you're the only one who understood that wealth means nothing without wisdom, that power means nothing without purpose." He paused, his eyes sad. "To Madison and Cheryl, I leave the material possessions you value so much, the houses, the cars, the things that shine but have no soul. I hope someday you'll understand why I made this choice." The video continued, but my father's next words were drowned out by Madison's scream of rage. She broke free from the agent holding her and lunged at me, her manicured nails aimed at my face. "You manipulative bitch! You turned him against us. You poisoned his mind with your fake sweetness and your coding nonsense." It took 2 agents to pull her back, and they quickly cuffed her as she continued to struggle and scream. But the video wasn't done. My father's face reappeared, and his next words silenced even Madison. "I know about the affairs, Cheryl. All of them. I know about the money you've been stealing from our joint accounts. I know about the lies you've told our daughters about each other, pitting them against one another for your own amusement." His voice hardened. "And Madison, I know about the bullying, the systematic destruction of your sister's self-esteem. I have recordings from your own social media bragging about making Zoe cry, about ruining her relationships, about ensuring she'd never feel good enough." The bank erupted. Customers were openly gasping, some had started live streaming, and the news crews outside were pressing against the windows trying to get better shots. In the middle of it all, I stood quietly watching the family that had tormented me for 28 years finally face consequences. Agent Sullivan finished reading Madison her rights while another agent did the same for our mother. Dr. Peterson, whose real name turned out to be Pete Morrison, no relation to Raymond, was already spilling everything, explaining how Madison had paid him $5,000 to play a psychiatrist and forge mental health documents. The conspiracy was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater, and there was still more to come. "One more thing," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "Mom, you mentioned protecting me from Dad's ridiculous expectations. What you didn't know is that Dad installed security cameras in his home office. I have footage of you switching out his heart medication the week before he died. The pills you gave him, they were sugar pills. His death wasn't natural, it was murder." This time the silence was absolute. Even Madison stopped struggling, turning to stare at our mother in horror. Cheryl's face had gone beyond pale to a sickly gray color. "You can't prove anything," she whispered, but her voice shook. "Those cameras were disabled. I made sure." "You disabled the visible cameras," I corrected. "Dad was paranoid about security, remember? He had a hidden system that backed up to the cloud. I found it last month when I was going through his old files." I looked at Agent Sullivan. "I've already turned everything over to the district attorney. They'll be adding murder charges to the fraud ones." As the agents led my mother and sister away in handcuffs, Madison managed one last venomous comment. "This isn't over, Zoe. I'll get out, and when I do, I'll destroy you. You think you've won, but I still have friends' connections. I'll take everything from you." But her threats fell flat. As they disappeared through the bank doors into the waiting FBI vehicles, I realized something profound. For the first time in my life, I was free. Free from their mockery, their manipulation, their toxic presence. The money was nice, but the freedom, that was priceless. The bank manager approached me nervously. "Ms. Chin, about your withdrawal." But before we could continue, the doors burst open once again. This time it was the bank president himself, and he did not look happy. William Crawford, president of First National Bank of Westchester, looked like he'd aged 10 years during his helicopter ride from Manhattan. His usually perfect silver hair was disheveled, his Italian suit wrinkled, and his hands visibly trembled as he surveyed the chaos in his bank. Behind him trailed an entourage of executives, lawyers, and what appeared to be a public relations crisis team already fielding calls on multiple phones. "Ms. Chin," he said, approaching me with the cautious respect one might show a nuclear bomb. "I'm William Crawford. I apologize for this unfortunate situation with our employee. Madison Chin's actions don't reflect our values." He shot a meaningful look at Brittany, who was trying to become invisible behind her desk. "Nor do the actions of any staff who enabled her behavior." "Mr. Crawford," I replied calmly, though inside I was enjoying watching him sweat. "I appreciate you coming personally, but my decision stands. I want all my funds transferred out of your bank today. As I showed your staff, I provided the legally required 30-day notice." His face, already pale, went nearly transparent. "Ms. Chin, surely we can discuss this. The withdrawal of $3.8 billion. It would require us to liquidate significant assets. Our stock price has already dropped 12% in the last hour just from the rumors. If you actually withdraw," he pulled out a handkerchief to wipe his forehead, "it could trigger a run on the bank." "That sounds like a you problem, not a me problem," I said, borrowing a phrase I'd heard Madison use countless times when dismissing other people's concerns. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew her. "Your bank allowed my sister to illegally access my accounts for years. You created a hostile environment where I was mocked and humiliated. Why would I keep my money in an institution that treats me this way? Crawford's demeanor shifted from pleading to desperate negotiation. What if I offered you a position on our board of directors, executive vice president of digital banking? We could create a new position just for you, focusing on technological innovation. 7-figure salary, full benefits, stock options. He was literally throwing everything he could think of at me. From the crowd of executives, a woman in a severe black suit stepped forward. I recognized her from the financial news channel's Patricia Morse, head of regulatory compliance. Mr. Crawford, perhaps we should discuss the full situation with Ms. Chen. She turned to me with the expression of someone about to deliver very bad news. Your sister's illegal activities go far deeper than personal harassment. She's been running multiple fraudulent schemes through the bank. If you withdraw your funds now, it will trigger a federal audit that will freeze all accounts. Every customer here will lose access to their money for weeks, maybe months. The customers who had been filming everything suddenly became very interested in this new development. Angry murmurs rippled through the crowd. An elderly man pushed forward. Are you saying my retirement account could be frozen because of this? A young mother clutching a baby joined in. I have bills to pay. You can't freeze our accounts. Crawford seized on this momentum. You see, Ms. Chen, your withdrawal wouldn't just hurt the bank. It would hurt innocent people, families, small businesses. Is that really what your father would have wanted? He was trying to guilt me, but he'd chosen the wrong approach. My father would have wanted a banking system that doesn't enable criminals like my sister, I shot back. How many other accounts has she stolen from? How many other families has she destroyed while you looked the other way because she was bringing in profits? I turned to Patricia Morse. You knew, didn't you? The compliance department had to have seen the irregularities. Morse's professional mask cracked slightly. We had concerns, but Madison Chen was very good at covering her tracks. And she had protection from senior management who appreciated her results. She glanced meaningfully at Crawford, who suddenly found the marble floor fascinating. Just then, a new commotion erupted near the entrance. 3 people pushed through the crowd, and my stomach dropped as I recognized them. Travis Chen, no relation, despite the last name, Madison's ex-boyfriend, looked like he'd been sleeping in his car. Behind him was Vince Torino, whose reputation as a loan shark was legendary in certain circles. The third was Robert Lancaster, and the wedding ring on his finger told me everything I needed to know. Where is she? Travis demanded, scanning the bank wildly. Where's Madison? That bitch owes me $50,000, she said once she got her hands on her sister's inheritance. I'd be paid back with interest. He spotted me, and his eyes lit up with desperate hope. Your Zoey Madison said you were about to come into money. You have to pay her debts, family obligation. Vince Torino was more direct. His 250 pounds of muscle flexed as he crossed his arms. Madison Chen owes me $200,000. Borrowed it for some investment scheme that went bust. She's been dodging me for months, saying her rich sister would cover it once she got access to the family trust. Well, he looked at me expectantly. You gonna make good on your sister's promises? But it was Robert Lancaster who provided the biggest shock. I'm Madison's husband, he announced to the stunned bank. We've been married for 2 years. She told me she was single. Travis exploded while several people in the crowd gasped. Robert continued unbothered. I'm here to serve divorce papers and freeze any assets she might be trying to hide. My lawyers found out she's been embezzling from my import business. $3 million over 18 months. Crawford looked like he might faint. The bank's stock price ticker on the wall showed another 8% drop. Someone shouted that hashtag #BankRunFriday was trending nationally. Patricia Morse was frantically calling someone, probably the Federal Reserve. And in the middle of this chaos, more victims of Madison's schemes kept appearing. A young woman named Bethany tearfully explained how Madison had convinced her to invest her entire inheritance in a fake cryptocurrency. An elderly couple revealed that Madison had tricked them into signing over their house as collateral for a loan they never received. A small business owner showed paperwork proving Madison had been charging him illegal fees and pocketing the difference. By the time the fifth victim stepped forward, it was clear that my sister had been running a one-woman crime syndicate through the bank. "Enough!" Crawford shouted, his composure finally cracking completely. "Ms. Chin, please, I'll do anything. What do you want?" "Name your price. Just don't withdraw your money today. Give us time to sort this out to make sure innocent people don't suffer for Madison's crimes." He actually dropped to his knees right there in his $10,000 suit. "I'm begging you." I looked around the bank at the fear in innocent customers' faces, at the employees wondering if they'd have jobs tomorrow, at the victims of Madison's schemes hoping for justice. For a moment I wavered. Then I remembered every cruel word, every public humiliation, every time this bank had enabled my sister's behavior. "I'll give you one option," I said finally. "A full public investigation into Madison's activities. Every victim compensated from the bank's insurance. Brittany Chin and any other employee who helped Madison fired immediately with no severance. And you, Mr. Crawford, resign. You let this happen on your watch. Those are my terms for keeping my money here for another 30 days while you sort this out." Crawford's face cycled through relief calculation and finally resignation. "Done," he said quietly. "All of it. I'll announce my resignation this afternoon." He stood slowly, his knees creaking. "But I want something in return. A statement from you that you have confidence in the bank's future leadership. Help us prevent a total collapse." Before I could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "That won't be necessary." Everyone turned to see a woman in her 50s stride into the bank with the confidence of someone who owns the world. Miranda Walsh, one of the richest women in America and apparently a client of the bank. "I've been watching this circus on the news. Ms. Chin, you've exposed massive corruption. Mr. Crawford, you're finished, but I have a proposition for everyone." She pulled out her phone and made a quick call. "Bradley moved forward with the acquisition. Yes, all of it. First National Bank of Westchester is now a subsidiary of Walsh Financial." She hung up and addressed the stunned room. "I've just bought this bank. All customer funds are safe. All legitimate employees will keep their jobs, and Ms. Chen..." She turned to me with a smile. "I'd like to offer you a position as head of our new fraud prevention division. Your experience with family financial crimes could be invaluable." The room exploded into chaos again. Crawford was being escorted out by his own security team. Brittany was packing her desk while crying. The media outside was going absolutely insane, trying to process the rapid-fire developments. But through it all, I kept thinking about Madison sitting in a federal holding cell watching her empire crumble in real time. As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone buzzed. It was a call from the Federal Detention Center. Against my better judgment, I answered. Madison's voice was hoarse from screaming, but her venom was intact. "You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of, Zoey. I've been preparing for this day. I have insurance, videos, documents, things that will destroy you. You're going to pay for this. You're going to pay for everything." I was about to hang up when she delivered her final blow. "Check your email, sister dear. I just sent you something special. Let's see how proud of yourself you are after you see what I've been collecting." The line went dead, and despite myself, I felt a chill. Madison might be in custody, but she wasn't finished yet. The war between us was entering its final phase. My hands trembled slightly as I opened my email app, aware that dozens of people were watching my every move. The subject line of Madison's email made my blood run cold. "Everything you wanted, hidden. Love your sister." Against every instinct screaming at me to delete it unread, I clicked open. What I found was a comprehensive folder labeled Zoey's Secrets, containing what appeared to be years of illegally obtained personal information. But as I scrolled through, confusion replaced fear. The diary entries were clearly forgeries filled with confessions of crimes I'd never committed and thoughts I'd never had. The psychiatric records were the same fake documents Dr. Peterson had tried to use earlier. The evidence of drug use was poorly photoshopped images that wouldn't fool a child. Madison's master plan, her nuclear option, was a collection of amateur fabrications that actually proved her guilt more than mine. "What did she send?" Miranda Walsh asked, noticing my expression shift from concern to almost pitying amusement. I turned my phone screen toward the room, scrolling through the pathetic attempts at blackmail. "She's trying to claim I've been running a drug operation out of the bookstore," I said, unable to keep the disbelief out of my voice. "And apparently, I'm also involved in human trafficking, tax evasion, and—" I squinted at one particularly ridiculous claim: stealing library books. Raymond, my lawyer, was already examining the files on his tablet. "She sent these from the Federal Detention Center's computer system," he noted with professional interest. "That's another federal crime added to her list. Also, the metadata on these forgeries shows they were created on bank computers during business hours. She was literally using company resources to fabricate blackmail material." The media present began live tweeting the developments, and within minutes, Madison's insurance policy had become a viral joke. Someone created a meme of the obviously fake diary entries. Another person started a hashtag #LibraryBookGate. Instead of destroying me, Madison had turned herself into a laughingstock while adding years to her potential sentence. But the universe wasn't done with poetic justice. The bank's interim head of security, promoted just minutes ago after Harold's suspension, approached with an iPad. "Ms. Chen, you need to see this. We've been reviewing security footage as part of the investigation, and we found something significant." He pulled up a video dated 3 weeks ago showing Madison in her office after hours. She was on the phone, and the audio was crystal clear thanks to the bank's high-end security system. "No mom Zoey can never know about the others," Madison's recorded voice said. "If she finds out Dad had children with his mistresses, she'll start looking into the inheritance. We need her to think she and I are his only kids." My blood froze. Our father had other children. The twins in California, the boy in Seattle. I've been paying them off for years to stay quiet. Once we get Zoey committed and seize her assets, we'll have enough to make them disappear permanently. The recording continued, each word another nail in Madison's coffin. She detailed how she'd been intercepting letters from our half-siblings threatening them with deportation. Apparently, they weren't citizens, and using bank resources to hide payments that should have come from our father's estate. The room watched in stunned silence as Madison outlined a conspiracy that went far beyond simple theft. "My God," Miranda Walsh breathed. "She was stealing from orphans. Your father's other children were entitled to part of his estate, and she was keeping them from their inheritance." She looked at me with something approaching sympathy. "Did you know about any of this?" I shook my head, still processing. My father had been unfaithful. I had siblings I'd never met. Madison had been hiding an entire family from me while portraying herself as the only legitimate heir. The betrayal kept deepening like peeling an onion made of lies and cruelty. Before anyone could respond, the bank doors flew open again. This time, it was a group of U.S. Marshals accompanying what looked like a federal prosecutor. But my attention was caught by the 3 people with them, a pair of identical twin women about my age with my father's distinctive eyes and a young man who could have been my male doppelganger. "Zoey Chen," one of the twins said hesitantly. "I'm Lily. This is my sister Rose, and this is our brother Michael." Her voice broke slightly. "We're your father's children, your half-siblings. We've been trying to reach you for years, but Madison—" She didn't need to finish. We all understood what Madison had done. The federal prosecutor, a stern woman named Elizabeth Harper, took control of the situation. We've been investigating Madison Chin's activities for the past 2 years, ever since Michael Chin here filed a complaint about being blackmailed. What we've uncovered goes far beyond financial crimes. She pulled out a file thick enough to use as a weapon. Human trafficking, as she threatened to have the twins deported to China despite them being American citizens. Extortion, embezzlement, wire fraud, identity theft, and now conspiracy to commit murder. That last charge sent another shockwave through the room. Harper continued. The pills Cheryl Chin substituted for her husband's heart medication, Madison ordered them online using a fake identity. She knew about her mother's plan and facilitated it. We have the digital trail. Both women will be facing murder charges along with everything else. Robert Lancaster Madison's secret husband had been quietly speaking with his own lawyer during all of this. Now he stepped forward with a briefcase. "I've been investigating my wife for months," he announced. "I hired a private investigator when money started disappearing from our accounts. What he found..." He opened the briefcase, revealing USB drives, documents, and photographs. Madison wasn't just stealing from family and customers. She was selling bank information to identity thieves. Customer social security numbers, account details, passwords. She made millions on the dark web. The interim security chief's iPad started pinging with alerts. "Sir, ma'am, everyone. We're detecting unusual activity on our servers. Someone's trying to access the system remotely using Madison's credentials." His fingers flew across the screen. "They're trying to delete files, transfer money. It's a coordinated attack." "It's Madison," I said with sudden certainty. "She must have accomplices still in the bank, people we haven't caught yet." I looked around the room, studying faces. She couldn't have done all this alone. She had help, and they're trying to cover their tracks. What followed was like a scene from a thriller movie. Bank employees began turning on each other, pointing fingers, revealing secrets. Jennifer, the teller who'd helped expose Madison, originally identified 3 more employees involved in the scheme. The head of IT admitted to giving Madison administrative access in exchange for promotion promises. A janitor confessed to planting listening devices in executive offices. By the time the dust settled, 12 more people were in custody. Throughout all of this, my phone kept buzzing with increasingly unhinged texts from Madison. She'd somehow gotten access to a contraband phone in detention and was sending threats, pleas, and bizarre religious revelations in equal measure. "You're the devil," one text read. "I should have smothered you in your crib," read another. "Dad loved me best, he told me so," claimed a third. Each message was screenshot and forwarded to the FBI, adding cyberstalking to her charges. Nathan, my ex-fiancé, chose this moment to reappear. He'd been hovering at the edge of the crowd and finally pushed forward. "Zoey, please. Can we talk?" "Madison showed me those videos she faked of you with other men. She drugged me at that lunch, I swear. I never meant for any of this to happen." His eyes were red-rimmed, his teacher's cardigan wrinkled and stained. "I love you. I've always loved you. Can't we start over?" I looked at him, this man I'd once planned to marry, and felt nothing. The betrayal had cut too deep. Even if Madison had manipulated him, he'd still made the choice. "Nathan," I said gently but firmly, "I forgive you, but we can't go back. Too much has happened. I need to move forward, not backward." He nodded, tears streaming down his face, and walked away. Another chapter closed, but the day's drama wasn't finished. Vince Torino, the loan shark, had been making phone calls of his own. "Hey, Chin!" He called out, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Just got off with my lawyer. Turns out your sister used your name as collateral for her loan. Forged your signature and everything. You're on the hook for $200,000 plus interest." Before I could even process this new threat, Miranda Walsh stepped in. "Mr. Torino, I believe you'll find that contracts based on forgery are null and void. Furthermore, loan sharking is illegal in New York State. Would you like to continue this discussion with the federal agents present, or would you prefer to write off Madison's debt and leave quietly? Torino studied her for a moment, recognized someone even more dangerous than himself, and made the smart choice. Debt's forgiven. Madison, who never heard of her. He left quickly, his enforcer trailing behind. The bank was slowly emptying as statements were given, arrests were made, and the media was escorted outside. The sun was setting, casting orange light through the windows, and I realized I'd been here for almost 8 hours. What had started as a simple withdrawal request had become a complete unraveling of my family's dark secrets. Harper, the federal prosecutor, approached me one last time. Ms. Chen, I know this has been overwhelming, but I need you to know something. Your cooperation today has helped us close 17 different cases. Your sister and mother will likely spend the rest of their lives in prison. The victims will get restitution. And you. She paused, choosing her words carefully. You're free. Truly free. As her words sank in, my phone buzzed with one final message from Madison. But this time it was a video call from the detention center. Against my better judgment, I answered. Madison's face filled the screen. Her perfect makeup smeared her designer suit, replaced with orange jail clothes. But it was her expression that caught me off guard. She wasn't angry anymore. She looked broken. I just wanted to be loved, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Mom always said I had to be perfect, had to be better than you had to prove I deserved to exist. Do you know what it's like, Zoey, to spend your whole life performing, competing, never being enough? I hated you because you were free. Dad loved you for being yourself. He loved me for what I could achieve. And now I've achieved nothing but destroying everything I touched. For a moment, I saw my sister as she really was, a damaged woman who'd been twisted by our mother's manipulations and her own choices. I felt a flicker of pity, but it couldn't erase 28 years of cruelty. Madison, I said quietly, I'm sorry you're hurting. I really am. But you chose to hurt others. You chose to steal, lie, and destroy. You could have been different. It's not too late to choose differently now. She laughed bitterly. It is too late. It's been too late since the day Mom told me I was only worth what I could take from others. The call disconnected, leaving me staring at my reflection in the black screen. Tomorrow I would start building a new life with my newfound siblings, my billions, and my freedom. But tonight, I mourned the family that could have been if different choices had been made. 3 months later, I stood in the renovated community center that used to be the bookstore where I'd worked. Sunlight streamed through new windows, illuminating the faces of 24 women attending our weekly financial literacy and empowerment workshop. The transformation of the space mirrored my own journey from a place of mere survival to one of growth and possibility. The most important thing to remember, I told the group, many of whom were survivors of financial abuse, is that your worth has nothing to do with your bank balance. Money is a tool, not a measure of your value as a person. Several women nodded, including Sarah, whose ex-husband had hidden assets during their divorce, and Monica, whose family had stolen her inheritance while claiming she was too stupid to manage it. The door chimed, and my half-sister Lily walked in with our brother Michael, both carrying boxes of materials for the legal aid clinic we ran in the adjoining room. Getting to know my siblings over these past months had been one of the unexpected joys from that chaotic day at the bank. They'd grown up knowing about Madison and me, but being told we wanted nothing to do with them. Now we were building the family relationships our father would have wanted. Zoey, the attorney from the domestic violence shelter, is here, Rose announced from the doorway. She managed our foundation's partnerships while pursuing her doctorate in social work. She has 3 new clients who need help with financial separation from their abusers. I nodded, wrapping up the workshop. As the women filed out, many stopped to thank me, not knowing that their strength in rebuilding their lives inspired me just as much. The Madison Chin Foundation for Financial Justice, named ironically after my sister who'd perpetrated so much financial injustice, had already helped over 200 families in just 3 months. My phone buzzed with the text from James Morrison, the high school history teacher I'd been dating for the past month. "Still on for dinner tonight? My students keep asking if I'm really dating the billion-dollar sister from TikTok." I smiled, appreciating his humor about my unwanted internet fame. James had met me at a coffee shop, not knowing who I was, and asked me out because he'd overheard me recommending a book on ancient Roman history. He liked me, not for my bank balance. "Raymond." My attorney appeared in the doorway of my office. "Monthly update," he said, settling into a chair. "Madison's trial starts next month. The prosecutor says she's looking at 45 to 60 years based on all the charges. Your mother got 25 to life for the murder charge plus another 20 for the fraud. Neither is getting out anytime soon." I felt the familiar mixture of sadness and relief. Madison had written me dozens of letters from prison, oscillating between venomous threats and desperate apologies. I'd read the first few, then asked Raymond to file them unopened. The therapist I'd been seeing, Dr. Rachel Winters, had helped me understand that I didn't owe my abusers forgiveness or attention, even if they were family. "There's something else," Raymond continued. "Madison's lawyer reached out. She wants to make a deal. Full confession to every crime in exchange for being transferred to a psychiatric facility instead of maximum security prison. She's been diagnosed with severe narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. Apparently, the prison psychologist says she's had a complete breakdown." I considered this news. Part of me, the part that still remembered the big sister who taught me to tie my shoes, felt sympathy. But the larger part, the part that bore 28 years of scars, knew that mental illness didn't excuse the choices she'd made. "What's your recommendation?" I asked. "Legally, don't engage. Let the courts handle it. Personally," he paused, "I think you've already given more grace than most people would. Focus on the positive work you're doing here. Let Madison face the consequences of her actions without your involvement." He was right. I'd spent too many years having my life shaped by my family's toxicity. Now I was choosing to shape my own life and help others do the same. "Tell her lawyer no deal from my end. The prosecutor can decide based on the law, not on what Madison wants." After Raymond left, I walked through the center observing the various programs in action. In one room, volunteer accountants helped people understand their credit reports. In another, pro bono lawyers assisted with restraining orders and divorce paperwork. The computer lab hummed with activity as people learned digital skills for better employment. This was my father's true legacy, using technology and resources to lift others up. Miranda Walsh arrived for our monthly board meeting, accompanied by the 6 other wealthy women who'd joined our foundation's leadership after hearing my story. "The numbers are incredible," Miranda announced, reviewing our impact report. "But I'm more interested in the faces behind the numbers. Tell us about your successes." I shared story after story, the woman who'd escaped her abusive husband and now owned her own catering business, the teenager who'd aged out of foster care and was now in college studying finance, determined to help other foster kids manage their money, the elderly couple who'd recovered their life savings from a scammer with our legal team's help. Each victory was small compared to billions, but infinitely more valuable to the people involved. As the meeting concluded, my phone rang. It was Jennifer, the bank teller who'd first exposed Madison's crimes. She now worked as our foundation's program coordinator. "Zoey, you need to see the news. It's about Madison." I turned on the office television to find breaking news coverage. Madison had apparently attempted to escape during a transfer between facilities, injuring 2 guards in the process. She'd been caught within hours, hiding in a dumpster behind a fast food restaurant, still in her orange jumpsuit. The footage showed her being led back to custody, screaming incoherently about being the rightful heir and how I'd stolen her life. "She just added 10 years to her sentence," the reporter noted. This brings her minimum time to 55 years, meaning Madison Chin won't be eligible for parole until she's 86 years old. The reporter went on to describe how Madison had become infamous in the prison system for trying to run fraud schemes even from behind bars, attempting to manipulate other inmates and guards. I turned off the television, feeling nothing but emptiness where my sister used to exist in my heart. Dr. Winters had warned me about this, the eventual emotional numbing that comes from accepting that some people are too dangerous to love. Madison had made her choices, and now she would live with them for the rest of her life. That evening over dinner with James at a quiet Italian restaurant, he asked the question I'd been expecting. "Do you ever regret what happened taking down your family like that?" He wasn't judging, just curious about how I processed such a life-altering experience. I thought carefully before answering. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my mother and sister chose cruelty over love, greed over family. But I don't regret protecting myself or exposing their crimes. How many other people would they have hurt if I'd stayed silent? How many had they already hurt that we don't even know about? James reached across the table to take my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you showed incredible strength. And the way you've used your wealth to help others, most people would have just bought a yacht and disappeared." I considered it, I admitted with a laugh, for about 5 minutes. Then I realized that the best revenge isn't living well. It's living purposefully. Every person we help through the foundation is proof that money doesn't have to corrupt. Every woman who escapes financial abuse is evidence that cycles can be broken. We finished dinner and walked through the city, passing the bank where everything had changed. It had been rebranded under Walsh Financial's ownership with new policies and management. They'd offered me a position on the board, which I'd declined. I had no interest in traditional banking. My work was on the ground with real people facing real struggles. As we reached my apartment building, my phone buzzed with a notification from the Foundation's overnight helpline. Someone needed emergency assistance escaping a financially abusive situation. Without hesitation, I activated our rapid response team. This was my life now, using billions not for luxury or status, but for liberation and justice. Looking back at that day in the bank when Madison threw $20 at my feet and called me pathetic, I realized she'd inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible. She'd pushed me to finally claim my worth, not just financially, but personally. Her cruelty had catalyzed my freedom. I'm Zoey Chin, and I learned that money doesn't change people. It reveals them. My billions didn't make Madison cruel. They exposed the cruelty that was always there. But more importantly, I learned that no amount of money can buy what really matters: peace of mind, self-respect, and freedom from toxic people. The bank may have frozen that day, but I finally thawed from years of frozen self-worth. Sometimes the greatest wealth is simply walking away from those who make you feel worthless. And yes, I did get my car fixed, paid cash. As I settled into bed that night, I thought about the questions viewers might have after hearing my story. If you've experienced financial abuse from family or partners, know that you're not alone. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-preservation? What would you do if you discovered a loved one had been stealing from you or others? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because these conversations help break the silence around financial abuse. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content about overcoming adversity and building healthy boundaries. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by their bank balance or family's opinion. Your support helps us reach more people who might be trapped in similar situations, feeling hopeless and alone. Remember, whether you have billions or just barely enough, you deserve respect, dignity, and freedom from abuse. Sometimes the richest thing you can do is walk away from people who impoverish your spirit. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to write your own chapter of freedom and peace.